Welcome to Beauty Talk with me, Cindy Nell Roberts, and my beauty bestie, Denise Simba. Our expert in studio today is skin expert and owner of her own very successful skin and laser clinic, Caroline Lindes. Caroline, we're so happy to have you here.
Thank you. Lovely to be here.
Thank you. Caroline, I've been trusting you with my own personal skin and laser treatments for many years. So I know that you've seen all the treatments come and go. What is currently new that really excites you?
One of the latest treatments in the industry that excites us at the moment is exosome treatments. Exosomes naturally occur in the skin due to the fact that the cells secrete these exosomes, and the main function of the exosomes are to react with cells in the skin and to give them specific instruction to do a particular function. For example, exosomes in the skin that bind with fibrocyte cells can give instruction to those cells to then produce more collagen when we start seeing that the collagen in the skin is starting to decrease. The same thing with hyperpigmentation. If a pigment cell in the skin becomes producing, then we can actually reduce the amount of pigmentation through exosomes that bind with the cell and give it instruction to regulate it. Same with sensitivity and rosacea, even acne and acne-related conditions.
And how are the exosomes applied?
So it's usually naturally occurring in the body and in the skin, but with age, unfortunately, it decreases, and it's not sufficient to actually instruct the amounts of cells that are starting to age and not reproduce enough collagen, for example. So what laboratories do nowadays with the amazing technology that we have is to take stem cells and to create these exosomes from the stem cells and put it in sterile ampules. And that is then supplied to specific clinics or medical practices where the doctors and the therapists can induce it into the skin with either deep microneedling or mesotherapy, which is tiny micro-injections of the exosomes into the deeper layers of the skin.
Oh. Wow, that is like insane. So much information to take in. Okay, so speaking of acne, you recommend that Accutane, because I used that when I was in high school. I had really, really bad skin, and like fine pimples, not which is also another weird thing, but does it work for everybody?
Aretane or Accutane specifically?
Yeah, well, I think I only know one.
So it's a very good question, actually, because Aretane is basically vitamin A. It's a very high form of vitamin A. And if a skin is struggling with very serious papular, inflammatory type of acne, then yes, absolutely. It's a condition that needs to be treated medically with high dosages of vitamin A. But if it is maybe just an overproduction of oil, maybe a bit of congestion, fine little bumps under the skin, then normal vitamin A, which is retinol, can then, play an amazing role. It basically helps to increase your cell turnover rate. So the buildup of keratinized cells are being sloughed off much easier. It prevents that blockage of pores, which leads to congestion. And it just helps with the faster cell turnover so that you don't struggle with blockages, which then leads to congestion. Also helps to control the oil in a way.
Is it possible that you can have an oily face, but from the neck down dry? Because I suffer from that. So I wanted to just check if it's all an illusion or it's actually like medically possible.
Not an illusion at all. So
why is that?
Biologically, we have a lot more oil glands per square millimeter on the face than we do on the body. Even particular areas of the face, for example, the typical oil panel as they label it, nose, forehead, chin, more oil glands per square millimeter. So it's going to, if it's producing in
a rapid,
yes.
Yeah.
It will probably show on the T-panel and on the face, but definitely not in the same way on the body.
Okay.
So there's definitely a difference between the two. If you're struggling with dryness on the body, it might just be a barrier issue, because we don't always apply the more expensive face creams that nourish all over the body. So that is something that you can maybe invest in, is a good quality hyaluronic acid-based moisturizer, barrier
And talk
cream.
us through the most important products that you need to have in your routine, what ingredients they have, and do they work on all different skin types? Like, would they work the same on my skin and Denise's
that's
skin?
a good question.
It is a good question. There's such a vast amount of ingredients out there that I always focus and start with the 5 most valuable ingredients that you can have in your routine. You would always start off first with a cleanser. Your skin needs to be cleansed twice a day. It needs to preferably be a low pH cleanser, because the skin's pH is low. It's 5.3, maybe maximum 5.5. If you use a soap that has an alkaline or a high pH, you're going to strip that barrier completely, and you're going to mess up the hydration levels in the skin. So it needs to be a good, proper low pH cleanser. Toner is not necessarily needed. In the past it was, because a toner would drop the pH from a soap down to where it's supposed to be. So toners is a nice to have, but maybe something more hydrating that doesn't contain alcohols. Serums would be applied next.
Okay.
So with serums, you will have a look at antioxidants in the day. Good examples of antioxidants are your vitamin C's. Really, really good to fight off free radicals, and very important for pigmentation regulation as well.
Okay, noted.
And yes, absolutely. And niacinamide, vitamin B3, very, very good during the day, especially for inflammation. Then when it gets to nighttime, your serum choice will change a little bit, because you will focus more on cell turnover. And this is where retinol and your alpha hydroxy acids come into play. Never on the same day on top of each other. It will be too stimulating, but either retinoic acid or retinol in a encapsulated form. And then on a different day, your alpha hydroxy acids, which will either be glycolic acid or lactic acid. Glycolic for oiliness and lactic acid for a more dry skin.
Okay.
That's very good to help release that buildup of dead keratinized cells, prevent blockages, help with cell turnover, and aging, anti-aging at the end of the day. And then, of course, you would follow and end off with a moisturizer. The moisturizer's function is ideally to create a barrier on the skin, and just to help keep all the active ingredients intact and allow it to do its thing, what it's supposed to do.
And then obviously you always end up off every treatment or routine with sunscreen. I know that you always do that too.
Absolutely.
And then these products would work on all different skin types. The same way.
These 5 that I mentioned will be safe to use on most skin types. But if you have a more severe problem where maybe oil production, you're overproducing oil, you would have to look at something that is maybe a lipophilic, something that is water and oil soluble, that will help to penetrate a little bit deeper past that oil layer and to absorb excess oil and help regulate the normal oil production. Salicylic acid is a really good example of that. So if you've got a really dry skin, stay away from, especially apps. Yeah, it's so tempting to use retinols and everything that rejuvenates and regenerates. And but if your skin is really dry, and the barrier is not completely intact, then your cell turnover is not necessarily functioning as it should. So by stripping excess skin cells on the surface, you might end up with a bit of sensitivity. So hyaluronic acid in that case.
That makes sense, because maybe that's why, because I've got eczema. So then it flares.
Absolutely.
Because Oh,
Yes.
can I take you home with me for like 3 years so I can get it under control?
You'll quickly figure it out once we give you the handy tools.
Yeah.
Niacinamide will be great for you.
Cinnamide.
Niacinamide and peptides, absolutely.
What products did we use? Like, what products did we use back in the day compared to what we use now?
Yes.
I mean, we never knew about retinol.
Yeah.
Vitamin C wasn't a thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's so radically different, but also what we drink and
Yes.
From inside.
Absolutely.
Do you think that the products in the stores and the salons are very different?
There is a difference and there's a place for both.
Okay.
But you can very easily treat a skin successfully with products that you can buy over the counter as long as you know your ingredients. So do a little bit of research and just make sure that you're not going to buy something with an ingredient that might counteract your problem. The products are less active in the shops, ones that you buy off the shelf, but also just to help create a barrier on the skin without the unnecessary risks of developing sensitivity or dryness that you might get with more active ingredients. So if you want to help with the functioning and the normal activity of the cells, definitely get good ingredients in products that you can buy off the shelf.
And your skin is such an important part of your life. You really should spend time researching it, making sure you understand the ingredients and your specific needs, because I think skincare is so specific to everyone.
Absolutely.
And there's so much information available from credible sources, and
Definitely.
make sure you get specialists who you really trust. I think that's the important thing.
Absolutely.
And can you use the same products for long periods of time, for years and years, or does it stop? Does the efficacy of it change on your skin?
There's a bit of a myth around that where people say you can only use a product for a specific amount of time and then you need to change because the skin is used to it or it's not working for the skin anymore. But in actual fact, you must remember that the skin is actually a living organ. And what you apply on your skin is going to influence the functioning of that. So it's not that the skin gets used to it or it doesn't work for it anymore. It's because the skin is changing due to what you're applying to it. And once it's reached the sufficient changes, you can now focus on another group of elements that you want to focus on. And then, yes, change your products. Go towards other active ingredients that can then function on different levels in the skin.
Speaking of ingredients, so like for people on a budget, I got 2 kids. I have to always cut down on certain things that I want for myself, especially when it comes to self-care, which can be kind of like a bummer because, self-care is so important.
Absolutely, so important.
And so when I go to the shop, sometimes I opt for more of the organic approach because some people also like finding that as seemingly a trend where you opt for the coconut oil combination with the castor oil, especially for if I have like an eczema flare, just to kind of control it, compared to the products in the stores. Yeah. Would you opt for that? Because it doesn't really have instruction on how much you take, like the products would do.
Yeah, I hear you. It's definitely a debate going on in the industry, but again, there's a science behind it. So if you understand it and you use it correctly, you can definitely benefit from using therapeutic grade essential oils. The molecular structure is slightly smaller. It's designed to penetrate, but just remember that once you use those oils and once it's penetrated, what happens to the epidermal cells? You still need to apply a barrier. It's very important to make sure that you apply a low pH product with a barrier that maybe contains hyaluronic acid to help create a good environment for the skin to function normally. And that's probably where one should start. Okay. We always want to add a lot of actives, but your skin just wants a barrier to do what it's supposed to do because the water is not evaporating excessively. There's no barrier dysfunction. So water, hyaluronic acid being an important factor of that. And a good barrier cream, just to help keep everything intact.
Water, 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 vitamin C, hyaluronic acid, good barrier cream, retinol, research.
Yes.
It is the biggest organ on your body. We should
Yeah.
spend the most time researching it and care for ourselves.
Yeah.
Thank you, Caroline. That was very informative. Denise, I don't know what budget you're doing your beauty on, but your skin is glowing, girl.
Thank you.
It is looking beautiful.
It's all the tips now.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. That was very, very informative.
You're welcome.
And that was a very informative beauty talk. Thank you to our expert, Caroline, and my sidekick, Denise Simba. We'll see you next time.